Hello and welcome to Joe's Pod, the podcast which we talk about everything and anything about music and early years. So today our theme is looking into one of our fantastic franchisees who has actually been a franchisee now for over a decade, but been working within Jo Jingles for, I believe, 17 years. But we will crack on with that and ask a few things. So I want to welcome immediately to us all Tracey Bees, our franchisee in Bristol. Hello, Tracey.
Hello, everybody. It's really great to be here and to speak to you all. So
Brilliant.
I'm actually really looking forward to it. It's really been quite a journey. And especially at the moment, we're having some fantastic times celebrating Joe's 30th anniversary. So it's nice to be part of this.
Yeah, no, it's really nice to have you on board as well. I mean, somebody with 17 years of jingling behind them, we couldn't go without you, Tracey, to be honest. So, so what Tracey's going to go through today is a little bit about Tracey's journey as a franchisee, and also some tips for our listeners at home who may want to introduce music and movement into routines or into your child's life. I'm sure Tracey is going to go through a lot of the benefits of that, and I'm going to be asking a few questions around it. So let's move into our first segment today. So Tracey, you've obviously mentioned 30 years of Jo Jingles. Is that this month, or is that something that the whole network is looking into?
It's something that the whole network has actually been doing. Collaborated with lots of birthday parties. We've been singing. A head office have been doing a lot of artwork for us to incorporate in our classes, and I just think it's amazing to have that longevity. There's a lot of singing classes out there, but to have be around that amount of time and still going strong. And because of it, I get I'm lucky enough. I've been around a long time. I'm actually at the point now where I have returning children that have come to my classes. I've got 4 mums that have come to me with their babies that I am now teaching their babies, which is amazing. And it's just incredible that they want to come back after the experience that they had as a child and want their own babies to be part of it. So it's a big family.
Yeah, man, it sounds like it. And also, how does that make you feel that people are coming back? I suppose that's second generation, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it sounds like really corny, but I really do have the best job in the world, because it is one big family. It is a Jo Jingles family as far as the franchisees, but also the jingling families that are coming to classes. I actually get a lot of grandparents now. The demographics have changed quite dramatically since I started. With whereas before it used to be just a mum with a baby, now I'm getting a lot of dads that are coming to classes. I mean, only last week I had a class with 5 dads in, and that's because of the changing in childcare. You've got men doing condensed weeks, so that they've then got childcare for 1 day a week, maybe doing a 4-day week, and we get a lot of grandparents as well now that have the childcare. In fact, I've got one particular grandmother, and I have taught, I think it's probably about 8 of her grandchildren. She pays them to come along because she's done it for one. She does it for all the others. I've got invited to a wedding, a Jo Jingles wedding. And I've also gone along to a christening. And at the top of the church, during the christening, I looked and all the grandchildren I'd taught. It was just such a proud moment. I must admit, when the vicar got the actual tambourine out, I was there as well, and wanting to sing with them. But yeah, no, it's an honour really. I know it's to be part of the early years development of so many generations.
No, and I think, Tracey, you mentioned the word that you're very proud, and I think from us at Jo Jingles, we're proud to still have you, and I think it's the deeper connections that you make with your customers. To be invited to weddings and christenings and stuff like this, it sounds really amazing, so really kind of well done. But I think what we would like to understand is a little bit more, how did your Jo Jingles journey begin?
Oh, my Jo Jingles journey began I did nothing like this before. Initially, in my earlier career, I was in the building industry. I ran a team of 13 men in the sales side of things, traveling up down the country. And I then had my children. While I was on maternity leave, I ended up running a toddler a toddler group that was going to close. And so I helped with the admin and helped run it and planning. And from that, when I was due to go back to work I worked on a twilight shift in the meantime so I didn't have to get childcare and be home for my two boys. When they got to school, one of my friends was actually a Jo Jingles teacher for Pamela, who used to run Jo Jingles in Bristol. And I said, well, you know, she said that she was leaving. And I said, I inquired. Went along for a 2-hour interview because we were chatting that much. And the interview finished with me having to sing a song unaccompanied, which was the worst part of the interview. And I forget, it was Tommy Thumb. So that's Tommy Thumb has got a real little special bit in my heart for giving me the best job in the world. It meant then that I had all the holidays. I was at term time only. I did all the school drop-offs, pickups. I was able to actually have affinity sports days, and because I was teaching for Pam, I even saw school assemblies if she had to fill in for me to do that. So it just meant that I was able to be part of their growing up. And I had trouble getting children, so I had them later on in life, and so it was very special to be able to do that. Ironically as well, some of the things that we do in class I used to practice on my youngest son, who was 4 at the time, and some of the actions we still do are because of my son, who's also called Joe. He's Joseph, but he was a Joe. So it continues really. So
No.
that's how I got into it. And then when my youngest son was due to go up to high school, Pam announced that she was selling the franchise, and it was a time when I was going to have to be looking to doing something a bit bigger than just part time. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to continue the bit I love, really. So yeah,
That's amazing. Sounds really. There's a lot of special memories then
yeah.
that you've got with Joe from a very young. Well, Joseph, sorry, and Joe, getting them mixed up already. But that was a bit hard for you as well. I think one of the key things that you were talking about there was that flexibility. I see it and I hear it quite a lot. We mentioned earlier on about Dad being more involved in some of Jo Jingles' music classes. I suppose 17 years ago that was a bit more of a well. What was it like then with
17 years ago, it was a room full of women with babies.
yeah.
And now it's certainly not unusual for a third sometimes to be men. And also we've got same-sex marriages. I actually had one of my dads was getting married on Saturday to his partner. So it's just lovely to have the diversity, and also the fact that both partners, whoever, whatever sex they are able to be part of the Jo Jingles journey with their little ones. Yeah, it's special, and that didn't happen. One partner, primarily 17 years ago, was at work full time, and on the odd occasion, maybe if it was a child's birthday, they'd take the day off and would come along on that particular day, and it was it was once in a blue moon. But now it's very common. I've grandparents that come along to classes quite often make friends as well, because at the other end of your life, sometimes it can get quite lonely, especially if they've moved to be nearer their grandchildren, and so they aren't in the place where they spent most of their life. And I've got a couple of granddads now that play golf together. During COVID, I actually set up a grandparent WhatsApp, which is still going because they were in isolation at home, and they still contact me. And one guy lives near one of the venues, and he lets me know if the traffic's going to be bad and things. So we keep those connections going. So it's
I
changed
think
quite dramatically.
And this comes back to, I mean, this actually leads me into some of the things that we talk about here at head office about Tracey, and that's building kind of a Jo Jingles community. By just doing that WhatsApp group, Tracey, you are going above and beyond. So what's your approach to your community? Why is it so important that there is a community within what you're building?
I just think when you first have a baby, it's a very lonely place. Whatever you're doing in life before you had a baby, you're kind of at the top of your game, you know exactly what you're doing, and then this little being comes into your life, which is amazing, and it's just the most wonderful thing in the world. But suddenly all the uncertainties come in, you know, when it's your first child, you don't really know what you're doing. So to try and give them support, it's getting harder. I didn't realise until very recently, when I was talking to some of my mums, that they don't have antenatal classes now. And I actually went recently to a local MP's meeting and brought this up because it was invaluable for me. I'm still friends with 10 of my antenatal groups, and we all meet up on a regular basis. The kids meet up, and they're in their 20s now. And there isn't any of that. So in some respects, I suppose I'm trying to help make a bit of a community. My Bradley Stoke class here, the mums, they've all set up a WhatsApp group now, and one will say, I'm off to the park today, is anyone around? You know, so it's giving them a connection to mums that are going through exactly the same stage, or dads, should I say, as well, go through exactly the same stage and have the same concerns and you know, worries of what their little ones might have. And you don't necessarily want to contact a doctor, but you can speak to someone who's gone through it. So yeah, I think it's important to be able to make those friends. And a lot of people, so they're moving to different parts of the country and they don't know anybody. You get some. I had another situation where I had a mum who has had her children much later in life, like I did, and all her friends that she knew, their children had gone through senior school. You know, where do you turn to then to get to connect with people that have got children the same age as yours? Yeah, that's what we try to kind of promote in class. And always, when I've got a new person come into class, it's very scary as a mother or a father or even a grandparent, but you know, a new parent, to come along to a class not knowing anyone, not knowing what to expect. So we send an email out and try and give them a little bit of information of, you know, kind of what to expect. But it's a scary place. And then so I always get them to come early. They come to class and I will do a little one-to-one, whoever is starting that term together, and we do go through a bit of health and safety and just try and put them at ease before the rest of the class come in. They're established, because when you see all the parents coming in, they're established and they're chatting, and I can actually turn around to them and say, these people didn't know each other, and now look at them, they're all chatting. So it's just making those connections, really.
I think what you're doing there is amazing, and the idea that you're bringing, I suppose you're taking accountability of things that aren't really part of your remit. At the end of the day, you're a Jo Jingles franchisee who wants to have an impact in their community, and it sounds like to me these small little wins, I like to call them, like the MP meeting that you just mentioned and the WhatsApp groups. I think that goes so far with families. I know I've recently had a child of my own, so I do kind of understand a bit where it's coming from with mums, because it is lonely, and if you don't know what to do and you don't have that community around you, sometimes it can get even lonelier. And I can really see how technology has actually worked for the better in this case, because people are able to WhatsApp each other, call mums when it's in the middle of the night and say, Mum, we don't know what to do anymore. Like, it's all what Jo Jingles does is it gives a platform for mums, dads, grandparents, as you've just said, to come to our classes, all have the same aim of wanting our children to kind of have activities in the right way. We spoke about in our previous podcast how educational Jo Jingles classes are. So, yeah, I think it's amazing. And it sounds like to me that the families have responded with kind of, well, inviting you to weddings, christenings and all these types of things. So those thoughtful extra efforts are definitely going a long way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, talking of, you know, we're saying about technology and how, you know, sometimes it's very bad press, but without technology during COVID, we wouldn't have survived. I mean, I ran classes every morning for just half an hour. To make me get up and shower for a start, and also to be in the houses of all those children that were isolated and the parents that were isolated, you know, you couldn't even go and see grandparents and things. So we did whatever the theme was that week. I did different songs along with the Jo Jingles Good Morning and Goodbye song. which is, given that format that they're used to, but just half an hour every morning for having them a reason to get up. And we were connecting. There was all the messages coming up underneath, and I could give them a shout out. We give them a wave, and they thought I was in the front room with them. I was on the TV and was in the front room with them. And I've actually continued doing my sessions online. I do them once a week. I record so that if anyone misses a class or is away or they're feeling a little bit low or isolated, they can actually pop me on the TV and do a session. If they come along to my classes, they get that as a freebie, as an extra. And also if they want to revisit what they've covered, as there's particular songs that they liked or their children responded to, and they want to, they can't remember the words, the parent, or they can pop me on and switch me off when they want to as well, which my husband would love to be able to do, just push a button and shut me up. Yeah, so I've actually continued that in the Bristol area just to sort of help. And actually, again, we're talking about that isolation. I've got so I had a little boy who had Down syndrome. He was a beautiful baby, came to my classes here in Bristol, and he has moved to Ireland. He's isolated. He's a bit too far away from any of our Irish franchisees that are over there. And so he's continuing it online. And I had a photograph of him sent recently Mum's saying he's waving at me on the screen. And he was in hospital because he has to have lots of operations. And so he was continuing his Jo Jingles journey in hospital in Ireland. And I was giving him a shout out because I knew that he was, she was over there alone. And so we were shouting out and giving him a wave and calling his name so he can react, and feel part of the Jo Jingles still. So, yeah, there's lots of ways you can do it. And, it may seem little, but it can mean a lot to people when they're in a position like that.
I think, and you've kind of nailed it in that, from what I'm getting from you, is that this whole Jo Jingles, it is more than a music class. It isn't just turn up once a week with my child. And for our listeners, for example, it's more about those connections, those long lasting connections, those educational moments that we've spoke about. So, and then we're going above and beyond with YouTube videos so people can catch up, or like you say, maybe it's just getting too much on a Saturday morning and we need a bit of a break, so we just turn on Jo Jingles Bristol and we see Tracey. So I think it's really incredible the work that obviously Tracey does, but also the whole of the network. There are so many different franchisees out there with different takes on how to have this impact. So, I mean, one question I've got for you, Tracey, just on that impact is, what kind of feedback have you had from families?
It's quite humbling at the end of every term or when somebody leaves. I actually have a folder and I keep every single one of my leaving cards because the words on it, if I get a down day, if you read those, your heart is lifted. It's just, they also, doing my job, you tend to do is whatever's going on in my life, you would share little snippets, but they come to have their children educated, they come to have some fun, and that's what you need to do. But singing actually gives you such endorphins. So, when I went through a difficult time when my dad was dying, the only day that I struggled was a paperwork day when I wasn't singing, because the endorphins from it, and it really does help whoever is coming to class. So yes, our classes are all about educating the children, giving them fun time, but also it has benefits to the adults as well. And quite often, because we booked per half term, and I'm not, blowing my own trumpet, but basically once people start, generally they stay with you they stay with me until they go to school, or if they get so many days of preschool offered to them, they can no longer come. And so you get to know the adults that come along very, very well. So you can pick up very quickly if somebody isn't quite have got the sparkle in their eye that they normally have. And occasionally I've had I can see someone packing up rather slow at the end of a class, they're resisting going, and I've had mums with a bit of postnatal depression crying on my shoulder, and it's just sometimes you need someone that's not quite so close, isn't a family member, to actually open up and admit that to somebody. So yeah, the educational side of things, the singing, the music, that goes without saying, but it is more than a music class. It's a community. It's a place where you can go and get help, advice. I mean, and I quote every time, I'm no medic, but I am a mum and I've been through it myself. So I just think, treat people how you'd like to be treated yourself.
No, I totally agree. And I think one of the things that stood out there to me as you were talking there was that kind of the community that people do come to Jo Jingles, and you're able to identify if somebody is struggling a little bit, but yeah, I think it's incredible the type of things that we do across the network. And I know you say you weren't blowing your own trumpet, but there must be a reason why children and parents do stay for. I mean, if a child, so it's 3 months, isn't it, until 5 years old that you're spending. Yeah.
Yes, sometimes I sneak them in a little bit. So if I've got on a returning mum, they will come a bit earlier because they're desperate to get out of the house and they want their Jo Jingles fix. So I will take them on a little bit earlier, but with the understanding that they probably will fall asleep 10 minutes before the session's due to finish. But that mum's desperate to get back. So come on in.
Yeah. I mean, you have 5 years with some of these children, don't
Yeah.
you? And I mean, the bonds that you must create them are special, and the bonds that the parents are creating. So the whole thing, like we've mentioned, more than a music class, but it is that when children come into our classes, there is this growth element and children growing into these young children ready for school and reception and all this type of stuff. So it must be incredible as a franchisee and a teacher, sorry, because obviously the 7 years. So no, it sounds incredible. And I think that moves me. I mean, we did mention about well-being and a few things, and I'd really like to just go in a bit more on that mental health, and how you see music supporting children, parents in their mental well-being, in not just only your sessions, but maybe in your community sessions, your nursery sessions. Yeah, it'd be great to understand a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the mental health for children, there's so much pressure put on them these days. So to be able to come into a class and just be themselves and be encouraged to be themselves is so important. And like I said, singing does give you the same endorphins as if you've done exercise or anything along that line. To have, and also it gives them the confidence as well. Mental health is all linked with that. If you've got anxiety of, shall I do something, shall I not? So with the children, you've got the format of the session, which you see a child who comes for the first time and they're all over the place. It takes about 3-4 weeks to not mold them, but kind of just guide them through the process. So we always start off, I call it the Tracey sandwich. You start off obviously with the Good Morning song, the Jo Jingles song. And the second week they think, oh, I recognise that. So you see they get quite confident, their little shoulders come down. And then we introduce a couple of warm-up songs. So we explain it's the warm-up song and then we bring out the first instrument and everything comes out of boxes. So it's like a big surprise. It's like everyone's like a Christmas present, coming out and they're desperate to find out what's inside it. And we sort of hold back a bit and wonder what it's going to be, and we'll have a little listen to it and see if it's quiet or loud or what sort of sound it makes. And all the while you've got these children that start off on the peripherals when they all come up to the box by me. Some of them are too shy to even come away from their adult that has brought them, so we encourage the adults to come up with them into the sort of semicircle where they're all coming around the box, and then gradually that child will move away from the adult and will come up independently. And it's just lovely that first time you see them having the confidence to do that. And then they have the confidence to shout out for the first time. I mean, literally about 2 terms ago, I had 2 children that have actually had delayed speech. They're over 3. They're going under consultants because there's a concern of them not speaking. I really personally didn't have concerns because the comprehension was there. You could see it. They understood everything I was asking of them. They reacted. They did everything I was asking them. And it's all about that excitement. When you've ever been somewhere where somebody's saying, and you can't help but shout out in the end. And that's what happened with these 2 children on 2 different occasions, but it was literally all in the same half term. I had the most wonderful half term. These 2 little boys shouted out I say, what colour is it? Is it red? And the other one will shout out, it's pink, and it's just, that's the first time we heard the voice. And it was just amazing. And, one of them, English wasn't their first language. So that was obviously quite common to have delayed speech with that. And again, it's relaying, to the parents, not to worry. It will happen. It will come. There's, again, so much pressure put on parents as well.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to just see them opening up like little flowers.
It's incredible, and very similar to one of our previous pods where actually it's that celebratory moment that you're not just celebrating with you and your child, you're actually celebrating with the whole group.
Yeah.
And it's again amazing to hear that's happening. And it sounds like it's happening all the time, but it must feel, for you, Tracey, it just must feel incredible. That must be like a eureka or a...
But this is why I keep saying I've got the best job in the world. And you say it must be happening all the time. But if you consider the number of children so at every development stage, we've got your 3 development stages, you've got your babies. Every baby, you've got a number of babies in that group. They're all going to start. I've had one that stood up today for probably about 30 seconds and then just went back down on the knees. And we're like, wow, look at that. And it's not just me. It's not just the parent of the baby. It's all the other adults in the room that have got to know each other during that half.
I'd like to again thank you, and to our listeners, if you do want to have a look at Tracey's YouTube or have a look at some of the socials, please just have a look on the link. We will be putting in Tracey's Facebook page. Put that Tidy Up song on now so people can have a quick listen, or if you've got to the end of the pod and your children are about to go to bed and you need to tidy up, you can just play this song. But again, that's part of routine. It's about recognising that what music and routine can do, which is amazing. But yeah, it's been great. And please follow us on YouTube. Please follow us on our social media. We have so many more opportunities for everybody to learn more about Jo Jingles, and also about what Jo Jingles is doing as part of a bigger movement across the UK and Australia, Tracey said as well. So have a wonderful week, everybody, and we shall catch you next week with our brand new podcast. Speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Let's be tidy. Let's be tidy. If you're nice and tidy at the end of every day, you'll know when next you want to play. Let's be tidy the way. Let's be tidy the way. If you're nice and tidy at the end of every day, you'll know when next you want to play.